we get started, I would just like to maybe put a question to all of you as well. It's always interesting for our participants this afternoon to know where people are coming from and what kind of interest they have in media literacy. So we're going to do a quick poll. So thank you very much, Chloé, for putting up the poll for us. So if you could indicate what your occupation is for us, it would be very helpful, whether you're a teacher, an educator, researcher, youth worker, or other. If you could please indicate which of these different categories of occupation best describe you. We will show that poll in just a few minutes, but we'll give you a moment just to reply to it if we can. And we wanted to let you know we also have people, I think, from over 30 countries joining us this afternoon, which is really great. So welcome to you, wherever you are joining us from. And thanks for everybody who's putting in the names of the organizations. So can we show the results of that poll, Chloé? Is it there? You can flash it up for us, that'll be helpful. We can look a little bit later on. Okay, so we've lots of researchers joining us, teachers, educators, and then the other, and we must try and actually make our polls a bit more sophisticated so we can find out what the others are going forward. Anyway, thank you very much for filling that in for me. Before we start with the countries that we're going to look at this afternoon, it's my pleasure. This is a session, of course, that's organised along with the two others jointly between ourselves and the Media Learning Association and EDMO. So it's my pleasure to welcome Emma Goodman from EDMO. Emma, just to kind of explain to everybody a little bit who maybe aren't as familiar with EDMO, what is EDMO, the European Digital Media Observatory?
Hi, thank you, Sally, and hello, everybody. It's great to be here, and I'm really looking forward to this session. So just a very, very quick introduction to EDMO. So the idea for a European Digital Media Observatory to tackle disinformation emerged out of the discussions of the high-level expert group on fake news and online disinformation. And so it's a European Commission-funded initiative which started work in mid-2020, and we're now in the middle of the tender process for the next phase. So in terms of media literacy, the central EDMO team isn't producing its own content. What we want to do is to support and enhance the work of practitioners across Europe, mapping the landscape, facilitating knowledge exchange and things like that. So in practical terms, this means publishing resources on the website, including an overview of what's going on at a European level, producing country profiles on the media literacy activities and status of the national media literacy policies in each member state, organising training sessions on things like evaluating media literacy initiatives, and we hope going forward to develop some sort of quality standards and a directory of best practices. And so just a little bit about the hubs. So far there are 8 EDMO national multinational hubs covering, I think, 16 countries, and the next round of hubs will be announced soon. And each of their EDMO hubs pulls together academic researchers, fact checkers, media literacy practitioners, sometimes media practitioners, and other relevant stakeholders. And each one of these is doing its own media literacy activities. And as you will see from the session, they're carrying out a wide range of initiatives. Some are building on existing projects and expanding existing initiatives, while others are starting new projects. Some are doing research, some are doing more networking activities, and everybody's doing something a bit different. And so it's great to have an opportunity like this where the hubs can share their findings and resources with the goal of benefiting the whole media literacy community.
Thanks, Emma. That's a great snapshot of the different hubs, or the idea of the hubs. And indeed, they're all doing very different things. And I think what we were trying to do with this series was to try and identify what they're doing in the area of media literacy, even though that's quite different, as you will also find hubs going forward. But they're only snapshots, little introductions to each one, but they'll all be giving us links and providing us with information where you can find out more. So really our job in the association is try to facilitate the networking that goes on amongst these hubs. So if you have questions, you'd like to reach out to anybody today, please feel free to put your questions or your comments into the chat. So let's move on because we're going to try and keep the time as best we can this afternoon. We're going to start first in Ireland. We're going to go to the Irish Hub as our first kickoff. And so I'm delighted to introduce Ricardo Castellini da Silva. He's from the Institute for Future Media Democracy and Society, FUJO, in DCU, in Dublin City University in Ireland. And he's going to talk specifically about the training resources and partnerships that they're doing to promote media literacy across the country in Ireland. He's going to give a talk of about 12, 14 minutes, and then we'll have a chance for a question and answer with Ricardo. So Ricardo, over to you.
Great, thank you, Sally. And thanks everyone for coming over today. I'm just going to share my screen here. 1 second. Here we go.
Yep, we see your screen
Yeah.
fine. Just go to full view.
Yep. Just give me a second. Okay. So again, thanks, Sally. Thanks everyone for coming. So I'm just gonna give. I just want to start to giving like a brief overview in terms of the Irish context in relation to media literacy. Let me just say I'm not seeing myself. Okay, now it's fine. So, well, basically, media literacy is quite recent in Ireland. We had our first media literacy policy launched in 2016. And the following year, we had our first media literacy network put together, the one that we call Media Literacy Ireland. I asked Chloé to put the link on the chat so you can access the website if you want. And I mean, over the past 5-6 years, we have done a lot. And I think it's important to talk a little bit about Media Literacy Ireland, because a lot of what we are doing here in the country, what the EDMO Hub is doing, is connected to Media Literacy Ireland. So we are basically taking the opportunity and the advantage of having this amazing network here in the country to use its structure and its network to promote media literacy activities and campaigns. So I'm just going to give you a very brief overview about what Media Literacy Ireland is. Basically, it's an association of people and organizations who want to promote media literacy across the country, and everyone works on a voluntary basis. This network is facilitated by the Broadcast Authority of Ireland, and its members come from various sectors in the society. So we have people from the media, from academia, from the civil society, and so on. So the main goal of the network is basically to foster discussion, also to kind of identify some gaps in provision, for example, and mainly to bring together the key stakeholders in the country so that we can together work on media literacy and promote and have different activities and so on. So the network has different roles. The first one is about coordination. It's kind of, the idea is to coordinate media literacy activities across the country, and also to be recognized as a kind of first port of call. So like if you want to learn something about media literacy, or if you want resources about media literacy, you know that you can look for Media Literacy Ireland. You can go to the website, or you can contact the organization, and Media Literacy Ireland will try to help you and provide assistance on that. Also, in terms of communication, as I said, the network wants to foster discussion and debates around the country. So it has 2 websites currently, also a Facebook page, a Twitter account, and it has a monthly newsletter. So in this way, we can communicate not only with the members, which are, by the way, we have around 240 members nowadays. So we can not only communicate to the members, but also to the general public. The network also organizes webinars, and especially during the pandemic, because we could not meet in person. So we had a lot of webinars on many different topics related to media literacy. But we also have an annual conference. Because of the pandemic, of course, we couldn't have the conference over the past 2 years, but this year we're having again a face-to-face conference by the end of the year. So that's the way we can actually communicate, we can discuss ideas, and we can exchange with not only the members of the network, but also anyone interested in media literacy. In terms of promotion, since 2019, MLI has had its own campaign, so which is called Be Media Smart campaign, as you can see here. So this campaign was broadcasted on TV, on radio, also in digital platforms, and it reached millions of people across the country. So it was a big broadcast campaign, and the focus of the campaign is much in line with what we were discussing in EDMO. I mean, it was not specifically about disinformation, but as you're going to see, I'm going to play here the ad for you. The idea was to kind of show the people that before they, I mean, when they encounter information and before they decide what they're going to do with that information, if they are going to share or not, hey, they have to stop, think, and check, which is basically the skills that we want people to learn if they want to avoid disinformation. I'm just going to play the ads for you.
It's important to you to know where your food comes from. Isn't it just as important to know where your information comes from? It's not always easy to verify what you see, read, or hear, but now there's help. Visit www.bemediasmart.ie. Stop, think, check. Be Media Smart. Brought to you by Media Literacy Ireland.
And then, I mean, there was this website, Be Media Smart. So basically, the idea was that people then would be led to this website where they could find more information about how, you know, they could avoid disinformation. So again, there was information about how you stop and think and how you check. So you learn about fact checking, you learn more about resources and so forth. So this was a big broadcast campaign. Since 2019, we had a different advertisement, but I like very much this first one from 2019. And I would like to highlight one thing that for me is key in any country, which is collaboration. I mean, Media Literacy Ireland is basically working on collaboration among many different stakeholders. And I think this is key in any country. It's not about one institution, it's not about one organization, it's not about one university or just the government. It's about everyone working together. As you can see here, we have many different companies coming from many different sectors working together to put together this campaign and then launch with a big broadcast campaign. And then finally, Media Literacy Ireland also facilitates the development of many media literacy programs. And one of them is the Media Literacy Awards that for the first time we're going to have this year. The idea is to acknowledge best practices in media literacy country, and the partnership with EDMO, which is something that is more related to my work directly with EDMO Ireland. So we have a few activities and campaigns that we're going to run, but the main one is the national campaign with libraries. And then you might ask, well, why libraries? Well, we believe that libraries are a very good starting point for, I mean, to learn about media literacy. And this for many different reasons. The first one is, especially in Ireland, the libraries here are held in high regard by people. I mean, people really trust libraries. They are seen as a neutral place. They are seen as a very respected place in the country. Irish people go to the local libraries. We have over 300 public libraries in the country, and Ireland is a small island, so 300 libraries is a lot. With over 1,600 librarians. So we really believe that this is a first starting point for people to learn about media literacy. And also we have identified that librarians want to learn more about media literacy. And this is quite normal because, I mean, they work with information literacy, which now we know I mean, those two fields of studies are increasingly coming together, so much so that we sometimes refer to media literacy as a media and information literacy. So because, you know, the librarians are feeling that there is a demand for them to learn more about media literacy so that they can provide guidance to the general public. Actually, there was a study here in the country The link is also on the chat, where the University College Dublin carried out a kind of a pilot study, project, with teacher training for librarians. So if you want to have a look in these studies, it's very interesting. There's a lot of very interesting information that about how the librarians see media literacy, their main needs, what they see, how they see their roles and as providers of media literacy, and so on. So basically what we're going to do is, our idea is to provide training to librarians so that the librarians will be able to provide assistance and guidance to the general public. Now, the scale of this project will, of course, depend on funding, like many of the things that we do. So in the best case scenario, we'll be able to train over 1,000 librarians across the country. In the worst case scenario, we'll be able to train hundreds of them. We still don't know. We're still working on that with some key stakeholders in the country. So we still don't know the scale of that, but hopefully we'll be able to provide training to as many librarians as possible. And then by the end of 2023, we'll launch the Be Media Smart campaign again. But then this time, instead of just saying you have to stop, thinking, check, we're going to say you can go to your local library and you can learn more about media literacy with the librarian. And then what's going to happen is we are also developing a new Media Literacy Ireland website. And on this website, we're going to have a section called New Training and Resources section. So on this section, it's going to be like a repository of resources. So the idea is that the librarians can say to the public, you know, if you want to learn more about media literacy, you can go to the website, you can go to that specific section, and there you're going to find more information, you're going to find more resources. So for example, if a teacher wants to teach about media literacy in school, he or she can go to the website and find more resources and find more guidance, and maybe some training resources as well for them. So those two actions are tied up together, the campaign and the development of the Media Literacy Ireland website. We want also to provide some training sessions. So we're going to have a session now in September about creative practices in media literacy, which is a very important topic, even though the focus of EDMO is disinformation, but we can't forget that media literacy is not only about disinformation. So it's important also to talk about the creative practices. And also we're going to run in October a session on evaluation, which again, this is a very tricky topic. We had a session, an EDMO session earlier this year. So we want to do something similar to that in a smaller scale. So it's going to be a smaller session where we're going to discuss some evaluation frameworks. And the idea is that next year, maybe we can have a face-to-face section and then develop a more robust evaluation framework here in Ireland. And finally, apart from that, we also support, the EDMO Hub also supports the development of training sessions for teachers through the Arts and Junior cycle. So here in Ireland, we have a short course called Digital Media Literacy that is offered to secondary students in the first phase of the secondary education here, that we call junior cycle. So students are between 12 and 15 years of age. So we have this digital media literacy short course. It's not compulsory, but some schools have this course. So we are providing assistance and training to teachers who want to teach this course in the school. And we also provide some assistance and support in higher education, having some media literacy elements in the training for teachers who will be secondary teachers in Ireland. So we also have this support both for teachers who are now teaching in the school, and also to would-be teachers, so to students who are studying to become secondary teachers in the country. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ricardo. That's a really super overview of what you're doing in Ireland. You haven't been able to see what's going on in the chat, but meanwhile, we've had lots of people introducing themselves, which is really great. I wish we were in one big room and we could talk more openly and more easily, but of course, we're a little bit constrained by the system here. But it's nice to see all the different places that people are joining us from and the different kinds of backgrounds. A couple of comments about the fact that it's great to see the libraries being very involved in this, and that's obviously familiar to people in other places, like in Finland, we've seen where people are working very closely with libraries. I'm just looking to see if I have any direct questions from anybody to you, and not for the moment, I think, but maybe I would just like to ask, I mean, you say that, of course, you know, the way you're doing it in Ireland is by having this single organisation, a very open organisation that everyone is willing to sort of join, who shares an interest in media literacy. And I just wonder how you manage that. How do you keep that open? I mean, obviously, you know, people are responsible in different areas. Is it difficult to attract organizations to take part like this?
Well, Sally, I mean, Media Literacy Ireland started in 2017 with only 17 members. So now we have around 240. So I think the first thing is that people in general and organizations as well in general, they are more aware of the importance of media literacy nowadays. I mean, I remember like 6-7 years ago, I would talk about media literacy, even in universities, and people would go like, oh my God, you know, I have no idea what it is. Nowadays, everyone knows for the bad reasons, because of the disinformation
downside,
crisis, because of the disinformation crisis that we have. But I think there's more awareness. So everyone wants to learn a little bit more about that. So well, Media Literacy Ireland is very well managed. I mean, and as I said, we have, you know, links with different organizations, and it's very open to new members. So this, I mean, this has been really good over the past years. And I think every month we have new members coming in. Every week I meet some people that are not members, but when I explain what Media Literacy Ireland is doing, they really want to join and take part of this. So it's a really growing movement in the country.
Which helps a lot. And I think it's fair to say, isn't it, Ricardo, that if people want to contact you, they can, of course. You're building up the website at the moment. I presume people can have a look and see what's there and find out more from you if they need to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very easy to contact. And I would say the website's going to change. So probably in 3 months' time, we'll have a brand new website with, as I said, a new section with more resources. And that's the idea, you know, Sally, because sometimes people struggle to find information and resources on media literacy, or it's very scattered, you know, around many different websites. So I think it's good to have like this kind of depository where you know you're going there, and then we want to build some tools where you can have different categories. If you're a teacher, for example, so you're going to visit a specific section for teachers. If you're looking for resources because you're just, you know, concerned about conspiracy theories or something like that, you can find specific resources about that. So that's the idea, have something really well organized so it can work as a first port of call for anyone in the country and outside the country as well, of course.
I think that comes back also to what Emma mentioned earlier in terms of EDMO Central. I think one of the things that EDMO Central is looking at is what's the best way to make materials available in other countries and to kind of do the sharing. Anyway, so hopefully through sessions like this, people get to know where your areas of expertise are. Librarians are doing lots of work with librarians, the national campaigns, and you're happy to talk to people about it. Ricardo, thank you. Thank you so much. You're with us until the end as well. Of course, I'd like to move a little bit now back towards Central Europe, and we're going to move now to the Belux EDMO Hub. And for that, we are joined by Bert and also Chloé. They've already introduced themselves, I see in the chat. Thank you so much. Bert is from MediaWise in Belgium here, the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium, and Chloé Tran is from Media Animation from the French-speaking part of Belgium. So I think we're going to start with Bert, if I'm not mistaken. So Bert,
that's right.
Where you go?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. This is a part of the story of what we are doing in EDMO Belux. As you can see, it's not me who's sharing the presentation, because indeed you can already go to the next slide, because this morning I spilled some coffee on my computer, which was quite a disaster. And for once, I was making a PowerPoint in an offline mode, so everything was gone. So I'm very sorry. This story I guess the story is as interesting as before, but maybe the slides are a bit less less creative than I usually do, and maybe there are some little errors. So please forgive me if you see something that is like, okay, if I count this up, it gives another total. So sorry about that. In EDMO Belux, there are 3 main activities that we will do within the media literacy activities. There will be campaigns, there will be training events for media literacy professionals, that is both librarians, youth workers, teachers, that can be the broad perspective of those. And there is the repository of educational materials that we are working on today. We are doing this because EDMO Belux is a multilingual, multinational hub. So there are 2 main media literacy partners, and that's MediaWise. We are mostly focusing on the Flemish part, and there is Media Animation, who's mostly focusing on the French-speaking part of Belgium and Luxembourg. So we are both doing the same work. We are both collaborating, but of course, with different groups of people. We want to talk about the repository work that we are doing. This is something that we are doing per language group, because in reality, the Flemish people of Belgium, they don't use any of the French-speaking material, and otherwise, because we know the language of the other part of the country, but not that well enough to use the materials. So we focused on that within our language group. How did we want to have a repository that people can use? Okay, we want some educational material on, as Ricardo said, on conspiracy theories, on disinformation in general, material for young people, older people, etc. So we want to have that repository. We did a call to the fields. So please, teachers, youth workers, give us your practices that you are using. We dove into peer-to-peer databases. There is a database in the Flemish part, which is Klassement, which has 76,000 teaching materials that teachers share with each other. It's like, I have created a very cool activity for my classroom. You can use it as well. And there is eclass.be, which is less, it's not that large as Klassement because it's newer, but it's the same for the French-speaking part of Belgium. We dove in that. We did some desk research to find other materials, because of course some of those materials are not in the databases. We got an oversight of all those materials. That's where we are, at least in Flanders, at the moment. We have now created a feedback panel, because of course, if we put all that material in one repository, nobody can decide which ones are the good ones. So we put all those to a feedback panel. They are now giving their feedback. We will select the greatest hits, let's say, of that material. Maybe we will enhance some materials later on, because maybe some of the materials that were created for the first COVID crisis, or maybe the first part of the COVID crisis, they are very good, but maybe they need some enhancement to be more timeless and not that time-bound as before. And we will translate the very best to the other languages within our hub. But we want to talk about those peer-to-peer databases and what we have found in there. I will talk about Klassement. We have found 136 items that were tagged with disinformation. And most of those were downloadable materials. So that is an activity that somebody has created or an organization has created, and other people can download it. 35 of those were videos. So a video may be found on the public broadcaster, maybe something from another country, maybe something that was created in the classroom, 25 websites, articles, that's mainly informative material on this information, 6 interactive online activities, that exercises that you can use immediately online, 4 bookable workshops. So there are 4 providers of workshops in Flanders that say you can book a workshop on this information, at least 4 put those on Klassement. And there's 1 physical material that you can only order and not download. So that is the complete part. The good thing about Klassement is that people can give scores, can say, well, I rate this one 4 stars or only 1 star. People can give comments and say, well, oh, this is cute, this is handsome work, I will use it immediately. And you can make it a favorite item that says something like, I want to use it again, which is a very good peer-to-peer platform. And in the end, you get, you can look at it as well and say, oh, I see that 32 people have scored this 4.5 out of 5. So probably this is a good material to use. You can read all the reactions. You can see how many people have visited it. So 32 people scored it, but 2,819 visited it. So this is what you can do on Klassement. I have, though I've dived into some of those. I have ranked those 130 materials, and then you can see that I took a look at the top 20 of the most hits, and there is quite a big difference. So the most searched items, the very most searched item got 12,500 clicks. That's a lot, and 4,000 is the 20th most. So it's somewhere in between. That means those are the ones that were searched for most. And maybe those, but that's not very sure. Of course, we could say, well, probably those are used quite a lot in the classroom as well. We don't know that yet. But looking at the amount of reactions, we know that it's used a lot, etc. Something important to know if we create something, I guess, is that people looked for terms like fake news or current events, actualiteit in Flemish. So none of the teachers searched for disinformation. That's something quite important to know. We want to get rid maybe of the term fake news, but in reality, if we want to communicate, maybe it's necessary to use that term. If we look at those most hit items, we see that it's mostly downloadable material. And even if we look at the website that in those top 20, it's online, it's a website with activities. It's an online activity. One is a ready-made presentation that somebody can use, and then maybe the only exception is it's a video oversight with a lot of materials. So people need ready-made material, apparently. Another thing that we look at those is that the most hit items, that's 8 times it's time-bound. That means it's time-bound to, for example, the Ukraine crisis, COVID crisis, or it's in line with a documentary that was on television. So in this, we see that it's 8 times bound to a documentary, 5 times on the Flemish broadcaster, 2 times it was about the social dilemma by Netflix, and 1 time it was by the Dutch public broadcaster. So teachers use the current events a lot to teach about disinformation, apparently. If we look at the top 20 of favorites, that is save it for later, then it's a bit different. It's not, you see, it's not that time bound. It's only 2 times time bound and 18 times non-time bound. That's one of those mistakes that I've made because of the coffee this morning. You see that it's different. There is also one informative article that is why you should teach about disinformation. So quite a lot of people said, well, save this for later. I won't read it today, but maybe later on. Of course, some videos. So this is kind of different. And then the most important or the thing where I learned most of is the last one. Chloe, can you click? Yeah, thank you. It's the best scores. That means this is good material. You see that people love, of course, the downloaded materials, websites with a diversity of activities, videos as well. So that, which kind of material, that's not really something that we can learn something from, but what they say as well. And that's the very last slide, I guess. So we see that the best scores are 6 times for time-bound material. And so people, a lot of teachers want to use material that is in line with what is happening in the world in current events. Apparently not everybody, but we see that good scores are mostly given to more diverse material with a broad spectrum of activities. So not something that is only one listen and quote activity with a video. No, it's when you see in that top 20, 15 of them is about broad perspective of activities. So it's a combination of video, maybe an active activity. So create your own propaganda video, or make a slogan, those kind of things, and with reflection on the own behavior. So if the reflection is not there, most of the time the scores hits lower. And something that was, so with those items that got less good scores, they said, well, this is very good material, but please provide me with the answers to the questions, please. So that is something that we have to take into consideration. If we create something, we have to give people the answers of the questions. So if you say, ask your students what they think of, well, people want some what should be a good answer as well. Maybe not the thing I'm a big fan of, but that is important for those teachers. And then I give the floor to Chloe.
Thank you, Bert.
Sorry, could you put the chat back on? I think it's disabled right now.
I think the chat is there. I can see the chat.
For me, it's disabled.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, it's disabled too.
We'll check that up at our end. I see indeed it says chat disabled. We'll figure out what's going on. Sorry about that. Chloe, if you can get started, we'll figure out what's going on with the chat.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will take stock of pedagogical tools available to teachers in French-speaking Belgium. To do this, I propose to examine the content of eClass. eClass is a vast digital library of educational resources intended to support teachers in development of their educational sequences. And this platform is one of the tools developed to implement the digital strategy of education. It's a project coordinated by the General Department of Digital Education of the General Administration of Education in the French-speaking Federation. The purpose of this platform is to provide a central online place for quality resources that are reliable and validated for the potential of educational use. You can only access this platform if you are a member of the educational staff. So I think the resources are not available to all of you, sorry. The tools are categorized by level, from preschool to secondary school, by courses, and by transversal topics. Media literacy is one of these cross-cutting issues. There are currently more than 7,000 contents, and currently 408 resources are listed under the tag media literacy. Unfortunately, there is no tag specifically targeting disinformation tools. I had to make a selection by myself. And that's how I counted 57 resources for addressing disinformation. If we look at the distribution of these resources by level, we can notice that there are fewer adapted tools in primary school than in secondary school. And then there are no resources for preschool. Although it's possible for users to rate resources, no one does. It's therefore not possible to have quantitative data, as Bert presents you. There is no quantitative data to tell us if a resource meets teachers' expectations more than others. For the moment, we don't know which tools best meet the expectations, but the continuation of the EDMO project will be able to help us with this. And we don't have a record of searches and visits on the platform. Furthermore, we can also look at the diversity of the offer. We have a wide variety of resources on disinformation, tool sheets, educational files, educational videos, didactic tracks, fact-checking websites or pedagogical websites, comics, meeting in classroom, interactive online activities. Many resources combine several educational materials, and there is a lot of video. It's probably due to the partnership between this federal e-class platform and the public audiovisual media, the RTBF. It's worth noting that the public audiovisual media, the RTBF, actively takes up the issue of disinformation, talks about it in their programs and produces the tools. This mission is included in their management contract. The resources are produced by media, associations, knowledge centers such as Media Animation, and institutions such as CESEM. The CESEM is the High Council of Media Literacy, and this council is active to promoting media literacy, stimulating initiatives and giving advice on projects presented to it. It can rely on 3 knowledge centers for media education, and they are in charge of designing, promoting, and supervising initiatives, action, experience, pedagogical tools, research, or evaluation in the field of media education, of course. The CESEM is active in raising awareness and supporting structural actions on disinformation, probably with a journalist, notably with a journalist in the classroom initiative. This operation was born out of a partnership with the Association of Professional Journalists. It brings students into contact with the work of professional journalists, whether for the written press, radio, television, or the web. And on the basis of this operation, they also produced an educational dossier on disinformation. In conclusion, InClass is a platform that provides educational tools to tackle disinformation, and the majority of the resources referenced come from partnerships between the media and public authorities. Then there are resources from media education associations. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Chloé. I know that we're going to be joined by your colleague, Martin Coulot, also from Media Animation, and Bert. So we have a few moments we're going to take for any questions that anybody would like to put to you, maybe particularly in terms of the resources that you have been speaking about. I think we have Bert coming in as well too. That's great. It's really interesting to see how you're doing that at the moment. I was really interested, I must admit, in how you're managing the quality control, because you're basically identifying anything that calls itself, in the case of Bert, not using the term disinformation, but using fake news. And then people can rate themselves what they think of the resource. And I was just wondering, how successful a strategy is this? Or do you think you need another form of quality control to actually look at the resources to see if they're suitable? Maybe I could start with you, Bert. What do you think?
Well, the thing is that classement is not something that is created by us. It's part of the Flemish government for education. It's got a system that you can now it has changed, but before it was like, if you want to gain access to some of the materials, you have a credit system. So you can get credits by evaluating materials. So if you give a comment, that means you got 5 credits. If you give stars, it's only 2 credits. So so that's how they push the system. So please provide us with your opinion. In that case, we can use it a lot. Now they have got rid of the credit system because it kind of works. The thing is that it's not completely neutral, because it's a peer-to-peer system. That means it pushes the materials that were created by teachers more than it pushes the materials created by organizations. So therefore, this gives us quite a lot of insights, but we are using the feedback panel to provide to have like an overview of what are the very best materials, and we have other criteria than they use for classement. But it gives quite a lot of insight. For example, for those teachers to say, okay, this is very good material, but there is no answers on the questions, and that comment comes back quite a lot
again. Yeah.
So that means, okay, if you want people to use the material, you have to give them not only the open questions, not only ideas, but the combination of the all. So it's good for the insights. But we're not using this only for the selection for the repository.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that's a decision that many countries or regions have to face, whether if they want to set up a repository, whether to use something that already exists, like Classement, which of course is familiar, particularly to the teaching world, or to create something themselves. Martin and Chloe, what about on your side? I mean, in terms of the creation and the availability of resources. Martin, maybe.
Yes, but it's why EDMO project is interesting, because we will go further about what criteria we will use to say, okay, these materials are the best. When we are saying those video or those pedagogical sheet is the best, well, in fact, we have the time to collaborate about what we expect about the best materials and what we would like to see in those materials. It's also a question about different way to use it and to fight disinformation. When we speak about media literacy, about disinformation, we say, okay, we have to see different points, different aspects, and by seeing all those material, we can say maybe we can check about 20 or something like this to say, okay, with those materials, we can have a kind of panel, an aspect about how to struggle disinformation in the educational system. And in this project, EDMO project, we will have the time to do this in collaboration between Flemish and the French-speaking part, who is very unusual, and that's the true value of the project, EDMO.
Yeah. Great to see indeed, yeah. And I think also between the EDMO hubs as well, hopefully there's an opportunity to share ideas around that as well. I don't see any specific questions coming in. I think thank you so much for your time. I presume if people want to contact you, thanks. Our Chloé has been putting links in there as well too. So I presume you're available and willing if anybody has any specific questions to you. And Bert, we felt your pain over the coffee and the laptop. I think we've all had that at some stage. Anyway, thanks so much. Thank you very much to you three, Chloe and Martin and Bert. We're going to move on to our final hub that we're going to look at this week for this month. We will come back, of course, to a further set of hubs next month, and that is the Italian hub called EDMO. And to tell us a bit more about what the Italian hub is going to do, I am delighted to be joined by Lorenzo Federico from the EDMO hub, but based in University of Warwick in the UK, and Elena Musi, based in the University of Liverpool in the UK, working on artificial intelligence and communication. And they are going to be telling us something about the tools that they are working on to prompt media literacy to enhance decision-making as part of the work of the EDMO hub. I think it's Elena that's going first, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, the other way around.
Sorry,
but I will
Lorenzo.
be the one who's going to share the screen. So
Okay.
let's just give me 1 second.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
And Lorenzo's joining us. Great.
Yes. Also, actually, I think there are some old information because I've not been affiliated with University of Warwick since April 2020.
Oh, sorry about that. We have old information for some reason. I
So
don't know how that
then, now I am at Louis
Apologies.
in Rome. So
Okay.
that's
Well, away you go, Lorenzo.
okay. I don't know when you can share the
yeah,
slides.
just 1 second.
I can start.
I'm just encountering an issue in sharing this screen.
Should I try to? It's the. Did you further edit the slide since the last time? So it's not a share.
Yeah. Actually,
Okay.
if you could, that would be great.
Okay, so I will.
Thank you.
I will share then.
Meanwhile, Chloé is putting the link to the EDMO hub. And so if you'd like to check out the EDMO hub, it's in the chat at the moment. And then we have.
Oh, okay.
Lorenzo.
Yeah, I'm here to recap a bit the first year of work of EDMO in all the various facets related to enhancing media literacy in Italy. We will recap a bit what happened in the last year. We will focus on what we are doing right now to create new tools for media literacy, in particular with focus on the ongoing electoral campaign in Italy. As I think everybody here knows, Italy will have elections in less than 2 weeks, and then a bit of the plans for the future and what EDMO is going to do in the next year. To recap, EDMO has partners with a wide range of fields, and we prepared a lot of different kind of activities in the last year. So we have had a very, I would say, a strong academic focus in creating the various scientific reports and papers, also with foreign collaborators. We have our partner producing monthly or more in general periodic reports on the state of the disinformation. We have our fact checkers of Pagella Politica and NewsGuard building their monthly reports, and we have also Team Data Room preparing some quantitative analysis of the share of the disinformation. We had last winter a podcast with various researchers and journalists interviewed talking about their approach to counter fake news. We had a lot of online outreach, both through social media and through our EDMO website, which was launched very quickly and was actually very successful with all updates on most topical events like from COVID to the war to now elections. And we also worked together with the Italian pollsters to prepare some large-scale investigations on the state of media literacy in Italy, like with Ipsos and Pannoncelli. We also had a broad range of both live and online specific events in which we had experts of various fields tackling specific topics. In this, we had a very broad international collaboration with, for example, work focusing on international politics and collaboration with the various embassies of different states in Italy. And we had also RAI, the main public Italian television, produce a series of clips that were aired that focused on both content and ways in which fake news spread. And we also took part to various broader events like Internet Governance Forum and International Book Fair to reach out also to broader audiences, not specifically focused on the topic of disinformation. Now we are mostly working on, as I mentioned a couple of times, on the ongoing electoral campaign and on analyzing which are the content and the rhetorical strategies of potential misinformation related to the Italian elections. On this, we are working together with Luminate and with Water on Mars, which for those who are not familiar with them, which I guess is most of the foreigners at least, is a group of internet activists, let's say, that have very good tools to download and process social media data. And we went over all the different online platforms to document and analyze cases of disinformation, but also cases of hate speech, also to raise awareness to the platforms themselves on the seriousness of the problem. And we also did the large-scale analysis, so for example, to identify potential, let's say, inauthentic content that gets distributed on social media. This is something that is often very common and that most people are unaware of when they are interacting with content that is not produced by actual people but by bots or sock puppets. And to find these kind of things, we looked for statistical analysis of the data to find out which are the specific properties of these bots so that they can be identified and recognized. This is because usually large-scale data coming from the behavior of millions of people tend to be very regular and homogeneous. This is, for example, number of tweets per account over 7 million accounts. You see it's a very nice probability distribution. And when things look weird and things look like they...
Sorry, I think we have somebody with a mic on.
Okay, no,
it's okay.
I thought that was like a question.
It's okay. No, okay,
it's okay.
No.
And so by analyzing weird patterns, we can find characteristics of bots. Like, for example, we realized that there were tens of thousands of accounts which were completely empty, save for the fact that they followed exactly 21 randomly chosen public accounts. This is most likely a sleeping bot farm that is gonna be sold to people that will then use it for whatever kind of propaganda they want to do it. Obviously, we have no insight right now on what that might be. And also, we found how different groups, different parties reach out to different audiences on the different media platform. Like, for example, Twitter it was completely, let's say, was overrun by the content first of Lega and second of Azione in Italy during the electoral campaign. This doesn't mean that this is disinformation. That just means that they are very active on these platforms. And we run similar analysis on YouTube. You can see various accounts of various practicing, for example, instead on YouTube, the 5-star movement as the most coordinated activity. Let's say again, this doesn't.
Lorenzo, we're a little tight on time. Just we will share the
Okay,
slides with people afterwards. Just to ask you to just keep an eye on it. Yeah.
Okay, so I just go through very quickly the results that that we got, and then talk us through next developments. So we monitored various platforms, and so we also realized that the fact that some platforms rather than others are used by only a part of the political parties, such as potentially TikTok, might also play an important role. And so we're also monitoring public responses to that. And moving forwards, we also looked next slide, please. We also looked at discourses around specific topics, such as, for example, polls. So what are the political parties that are talking the most about the results of the polls in order to influence public opinion? These are all information that are highly relevant for the public to better understand how propaganda works. Moving on, next slide. An important aspect that it's going to be at the very core also of our next media literacy projects is multimodality. So right now, communication and media, they do make use of emojis quite a bit, of memes, and so on and so forth. And for example, if you look at this double brick type of emoji, you would probably immediately think about that somebody's building a house, but it's actually an emoji that became metaphorically then associated with alt-right groups. So it's also highly important for the public in order to gain media literacy, to understand the meaning of images in older forms too. Next slide, please. When it comes to platforms instead, clearly the responsibility towards the spread of hate speech is still an open issue. And again, the public needs to be informed about that. We attested a lot of hate speech still going on across Twitter, for example, no matter Twitter policies when it comes to that. Next slide, please. And then we are trying to leverage new algorithms such as GPT-3 for natural language generation in order to sort of summarize news that are going around, fact-check news, and make them easily available for the public and also the politicians themselves to sort of enable them to see how they are talking to different publics through social media. Yeah, so this is the OpenAI playground, but we're not just gonna stop on it, but move forward. These are two examples of automatically generated news through GPT-3, this natural language generation algorithm, and as you could see, they look quite legit. And finally, just wanted to touch upon our next research project that just got funded by the European Media Information Fund. The title of the research project is leveraging argument technology for impartial fact checking, and the research questions are those that you can read in the next slides, and have to do with impartiality for the fact checking process. So basically what we want to understand is how we can make, in the first place, the process of fact-checking impartial in order to for fact checkers to actually focus on news that are the most relevant for the larger public, and also be unbiased in the way they do verify information. And we're going to build a digital tool that it's going to be publicly available in order to fact checkers as well as the larger public, in order to allow for more sustainable, let's say, media literacy in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry,
sorry, just this is just our last slide where you can read further about collaborations and literacy and research. So you can access it through the PowerPoint later on. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Any questions anybody has for Lorenzo or Elena? Please let us know. You can put them into the chat at the moment. It's really interesting, the research and the tools that you're working on. But I must admit, I was kind of curious now, how do you then share that with the public? I mean, one of the things you're doing, I see, is a hackathon for university and high school students at the Ministry of Education. Have you already started that kind of, putting that information out into the public a little bit? And if so, how? Elena, maybe?
Yeah, so there are like various way in which the institute is moving forward. So one way is like through the so-called like pillole. So there's basically a strategy that we have together with major media in order to summarize different, well, first of all, core news, but at the same time, like also to spread out the availability of the tools. And so most of the tools that we worked on and we are working on are all public access. So we also do have a strategy to spread them throughout social media and then monitor how many people are going to access them or not. So the idea is, again, like our website contains also all the links to the tools and also potential like manuals and that can be used to become more acquainted with the tools themselves. And then there will be also a series of webinars to, well, in a way, to sort of walk communication gatekeepers through the use of the tools.
Mm-hmm. You probably saw, welcome Bella, your last day in St. Petersburg University, I see, as a senior lecturer. This is a question for Lorenzo and Elena. Do you connect with media? And if so, how do you organize the connection between them and your audience, excluding social media? So you see the question? I think you've kind of started to answer it there. Lorenzo, you want to come in?
Yeah, so I think if we cooperate with the media, with the non-online, let's say, media in Italy, I guess this is the question. Yeah, as we said, I don't know, already touched on that before. We are, let's say, one of the official partner of EDMO is the RAI, which is the Italian public television, and they have aired product created for EDMO, like the pills, and also they are helping us, giving us access to huge databases of visual media that have been collected through decades, even before the era of social media, which can allow us to go back in time. So yeah, we are working also with offline media, but say we have even a more direct link with them, like while we use Twitter data or something like that, we are not directly in contact with Twitter, also because I think Twitter doesn't really have a specific Italian authority.
Bit of itself, yeah. Look, thank you very much. And we're going to ask everybody, we have a few minutes. We said we give ourselves to 1:15. So I'd like to ask all of the presenters, if we can just spotlight all of the presenters. That's a quick task for our Chloé, and Emma maybe as well, if you could join us. If anybody has any questions or points they'd like to put to everybody, now is the opportunity to do so, and maybe we can switch on a microphone or two as well if anyone would like to ask anything or make any points at the moment. I think what's interesting, of course, I mean, Emma, I bring you in on this as well. In particular, the hubs are all doing really different but complementary things at this stage, aren't they, in terms of the different kinds of emphasis that we hear. How easy is it for EDMO to try and pull these together in terms of a kind of some sort of a coherent whole? Hard question, I think.
Yeah, that's a hard question. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's something we're still working on, and I really hope that we'll be able to work on in the next phase of the project. So, I mean, right now we're building, as I said before, there's like country profiles, and on each of those we hope to really highlight the different activities of the hubs, and you know, we're trying to have more sort of formal and informal meetings between those in the hubs, working specifically on media literacy so we can share what's going on. Obviously, the last couple of years hasn't been, what everybody planned in terms of, allowing much interaction. But as people are starting to, travel
Come
again,
back.
you'll be able to do more things in person. But yeah, I think this is such a great opportunity to hear about all this work. And I hope that, we can find some ways to share these fascinating projects, more widely.
Thank you. Bert, Ricardo, anything you'd like to chip in with at this stage from having listened to, and of course, Martin as well? Chloé, any points or anything you'd like to raise at this stage? Does it all make sense? If I was to give you a kind of a bottomless pit of money, where would you like to put your efforts into at this stage? If suddenly you had lots and lots of resources, what would be the one thing that you'd really like to go for, Ricardo, in Ireland in media literacy? Where would you like to spend resources?
Oh, if you want to give me some money, Sally, I would definitely try to reach as many librarians as possible. I think that's what we are aiming for. As I said, the scale of the project will depend on funding. So even though Ireland is a small country, but with 300 public librarians and around 1,600 librarians, it's not really easy to reach all of them. But if we get the funding that we need, then we'll definitely be able to do that.
Make a big difference, wouldn't it?
I would spend my money there, definitely.
Bert and Martin, where would you go for? Bert, what would you do in MediaWise in Flanders?
Well, I guess I put my money on working with social workers, because they are working mostly on individual basis with vulnerable people. We have a lot of educational material that can be used in group formats, that in classic educational settings, it can be formal, non-formal, informal, but on an individual basis, there's not a lot of tools, there's not a lot of education on that. And those people, sometimes they need to work with conspiracy theories or with propaganda, and they don't know how it works. So I guess
that's where you'd go.
There's one lack, it's there.
Yeah.
I guess.
Martin, what about you? Media animation?
Yes, I totally agree with Bert, but we can work about evaluation about those tools to say, okay, I have a vulnerable public people. I would like to evaluate our impact about media literacy. So yeah,
try to have some standards indeed in that area would be very useful, wouldn't it? Yeah. The question coming up for Emma in a moment, but Elena and Lorenzo, where would you like to spend your resources in Italy at the moment? Anyone like to take that? Lorenzo? You're nodding. You need to switch your mic on.
Yeah, I guess like when it comes to I think, well, in terms like, of course, in research, that's what we are doing already, but also in building better connections with communication gatekeepers, because it's always very challenging. And from researchers' like point of view, the design of any tool that has to be used for media literacy actually has to be built within communication gatekeepers and users, because otherwise it's no point, right? So you want to build means that are useful for real, and also that make everybody else's lives like easier and not the other way around.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you, Louise and Emma. You're replying, I see, to Samara's question about the country profiles. Probably don't need to add anything to that. Those country profiles are already available, and there's a description of them. So I presume Emma or Louise are available if anybody wants to pick up that conversation with them separately. Look, thank you so much. We're just at the end of the time we gave ourselves. I found it really interesting. I hope everybody else did. I'm sorry that it's very much presentation. We don't have much opportunity for interaction and dialogue, but this is how we're starting these for the moment. Hopefully we'll have lots more opportunities for dialogue a little bit later on. I learned a couple of things today. I learned not to spill coffee on top of my laptop under any circumstances. And I also heard a whole new expression, a sleeping bot farm. I'll take that with me for the evening, and I hope you will too. That's everything from us. I think we're just going to put up a closing slide just to tell you, I'd like to thank Chloé, my colleague here, for all of her help. And of course, thanks to Emma and Louise, because it's great cooperating with EDMO in this way. We have 3 more sessions coming up in this series. We've one in October, looking at the EDMO hubs in Slovakia, Czech Republic, Poland, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland. The next one then in November is on France, Spain, Portugal, Belgium, and the Netherlands. And then we will have a session on the 14th of December on a project called Smiles, which is something that we've been developing in the association, and it's very much directed at librarians, interestingly enough, so it kind of picks up on one of the topics today. Join us on the 19th of October if you can. We're having a one-day online conference specifically on teacher education and digital media literacy, and you'll find all of this information on our website. And of course, we'll send you then afterwards a link to where you'll find a video. It'll be sometime next week, a recording of today's session, and also the recap document. So thank you all very much. That's it. We're done. Thanks for today, and see you back on the 12th. Bye-bye.